Did you have any formal music training as a youngster at all?
I was trained in classical piano, and I played and took lessons for up till I was about 14. And I found it is of absolutely no value to me whatsoever now, in that the style of piano that I like is not what I learned. But so the only time it comes in handy is when I want to relax and play some Beethoven.
Do you recall what it was that first attracted you to blues music?
No, I don't. This is a very hard question because, hang on, I'm going to turn off the news because I'm sick to death of Clinton. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a very white, middle-class Norwegian community. I was raised in the Episcopal Church, which is about as sterile as you can get religion-wise. And I don't know why I first heard that music and liked it. The first time I ever heard any kind of blues, it just nailed me. And there is no explanation for that. And I've spoken to other people like me and asked them the same question, and we don't have an answer. It's one of those kind of ephemeral things that just happens. Either something grabs you or it doesn't, and this just did.
Before you know it, you're hooked.
Yeah, exactly. It was very mystifying to my family, but they've gotten over it by now.
Who were some of the first blues artists to really grab your attention?
Well, it was sort of on two levels. Have you ever heard of John R. or Hoss Allen?
Names ring a bell, yeah.
Well, they were disc jockeys with a radio station called WLAC. Here, then, oddly enough, they came out of Nashville. And they were two white men, but who played total, all black music. And like after 8 o'clock, they took over this radio station and broadcast the first nationally broadcast, because they had a big split signal. They broadcast black music, so it was blues, R&B, gospel. And on a clear night, we could get that in Wisconsin. And I remember I probably was 14 or 15 years old, kind of driving around in the car, flipping through the stations, and just stumbled on this station and just never moved the car radio off of it from that point. And so that was part of it, hearing that on the radio, I think it was probably Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Waters. And then when I started playing guitar, I took lessons from a guy who was kind of a blues queer, and he introduced me to Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey and the country blues people. And that's all, and that's all she wrote. I just started trying to learn to play that style of guitar and sing those songs, and, whenever I played, that's what I did from that point on.
Now, some of your early bands were during your university days. Were you harbouring any thoughts of a career in music at this stage?
No, I really wasn't. I made a record when I was in college, and it amuses me to read the liner notes because I said to the guy that I talked to that wrote the liner notes, no, I plan a career in social work, and this is just sort of for fun. I don't want to be in the music business. I don't want to desecrate my art. And I guess I meant it at the time, but I got over that real quick too. And there was a point where I realized there was just nothing else that I wanted to do, and that's what I was going to do.
Now, shortly after that, you trekked to Chicago a lot, I believe, to check out the blues scene down there.
Mm-hmm.
They must have been exciting times. Any special memories there?
It was an unbelievable time. It probably, if I had to pick out one experience or one period of time in my life that was the most rewarding and the most exciting and fulfilling, it was that period of time. It was before I was seriously thinking about singing. So when I went to hear the music, it was just to hear the music and no business involved, nothing else. A little romance. I was having a little romance with Charlie Musselwhite, and that's what got me down there frequently. And this would probably have been about 1964. Chicago was just the south side of Chicago was just hopping. All the major blues artists were performing every weekend in Chicago. It was before blues became, before the young white kids picked up on it, and most of these people were not touring that much. So you go down to the south side, go to Silvio's to hear Howlin' Wolf, go to Pepper's to hear Muddy Waters, and any number of other smaller clubs to hear Johnny Shines and Johnny Young and Big Walter Horton and Junior Wells, and just everybody was appearing somewhere every weekend. So, if you can just imagine just parking your car and walking around or driving a couple blocks, and you just walk into a club and hear some other just monster blues artist performing. And it was really quite extraordinary and mind-blowing and exciting. And I have a favorite story from that period of time, which I've told a million times, but I was underage. You had to be 21 at the time to get into clubs, and they weren't terribly fussy about it, and I had somebody else's ID, so I could come in and out pretty easily. But I went into Pepper's one night with Charlie, and Otis Spann walked up to us as we came in the door, and Charlie started to introduce me to him, because, Charlie knew all those guys and was, really pretty much accepted and hung in those circumstances pretty easily. So he started to introduce me to Otis Spann, and I had to elbow him and introduce myself by the name that was on my ID, because the bouncer was standing there looking at my ID as I was being introduced. So we went and sat at a table, and then, this just raises the hair on my arms when I talk about it. Muddy Waters again came across the room and sat at the table with us and with Otis, and Charlie introduced me to Muddy, and Otis said, "Well, gee, I thought you said her name was Mary or something." And I explained, no, that was just the name on my ID, that I was 19, and blah, 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 I don't tell anybody. And Muddy got up the next set, and about third song in, he said, "Are you still with me?"
Yeah.
It's a long story.
It's going well.
He got up and he said, "I want to do this song for Charlie's woman." And he did. She's 19 years old, weighs like a little baby child. So how do you top that?
You can't. That's a story you just can't forget, is it?
Nope. It's just, and it was just an amazing time. When I started seriously singing, my pure enjoyment of music was. It didn't really. I can't really say dissipated, but it was affected, and it was complicated, because once you start seriously trying to be a musician, every time you hear music, something in the back of your mind is saying, "Can I use this? Oh, what I could do this with this," or you're thinking clinically on some level from that point on. And during this period of time, all I was doing was just listening to this music and just going crazy for it.
Now tell us about the formation of Mother Earth and the type of band that you had in mind for it in its formative years.
Well, at that point, I'd been working with an R&B band in Madison. We did kind of, R&B 60s, early 60s cover tunes. And so when I went out to San Francisco, I was pretty much, that's what I wanted to do, was put it together, a blues and R&B band, or get together with a blues and R&B band. And much to my surprise, there just weren't any. There were groups, like the Grateful Dead, who claimed to be doing blues, and I didn't see it, and there just weren't musicians out there interested in playing the kind of music that I wanted to do. So it took me quite a while to, kind of cull through all the people who were out there, and there were many, many, many musicians out there, to find just a few who, who were interested in doing more traditional music and not this new psychedelic stuff that, that most of the people out there were doing and having great success with. So that was a tough one, and we got a. We inherited a rhythm section from Doug Somm. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, sure.
Sir Doug, hang on, I'm taking my apron off. He had come out with his band to try to hit the San Francisco scene like everyone else. And my manager came to me and said, I found these great guys. And I said, well, cool, where'd you find these guys? He said, well, it's Doug Som's band. And I said, wait a minute, we can't just, like, take Doug Som's band. And he said, fuck him, he just ran off with my wife. So we got a good band, and Doug learned a valuable lesson, I hope. And we ended up with this really good, because what Doug had done was, get together all these South Texas guys who just, that was their music, that's what they knew how to do. And I dare say we found the only guys in town who actually could pull it off, and we went on from there.
An impetus in relocating the band to Tennessee when you did?
Oh, I hated San Francisco.
Yeah.
I really didn't enjoy living there during that period of time. I've got family there now. We're going out there for Christmas, and I love it now. But the times, it was a weird time out there, and pretty fucking wacky all the time. I mean, just all the time. And I just didn't relate to it. It just wasn't where I felt comfortable. And when we ended up a tour in Nashville and did a record here at someone else's suggestion. And by the time I'd been here a few weeks, I just loved the whole environment, the people, the climate. I missed seasons, I didn't like California for that reason. And it really suited me. And I thought it would be fairly practical because it's in the middle of the country, easier to get around.
Mm.
I mean, when you're in California and you're touring, most of the work is, way far away. And they had studios here, and record companies had offices here, and I thought it would be real smart to be here. I was wrong. It wasn't a good idea at all on a business level, but I don't care. It didn't bother you. It didn't hurt me too bad. No.
One artist you were constantly compared to during that time was Janis Joplin. Did that sit comfortably with you?
No.
Didn't.
Would it sit? Now, what if people? There was some really hot writer that didn't do anything that how you wanted to do it, and they compared you to them. Wouldn't that kind of burn your butt?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean it was inevitable because that's just how people think and operate. But I didn't like it. I had to find a million different ways of not saying, I don't even like the way she sings. What are you talking about? I'm insulted. And, at the time when I was just starting out and flexing my own ego, it was particularly galling. Anymore now, it's just kind of amusing because it seems to be such a non-issue.
Do you think it worked against you at all, too, in terms of general acceptance?
I don't think so. In fact, I think I got some breaks early on and some attention early on by virtue of the fact that I, too, was a female singer with a loud voice. And every record label was looking for their Janis Joplin, the next Janis Joplin. So, I had just started singing, really. And so to be able to pull off this, a major record deal within a few months of my getting out there was, mainly because everybody else was looking for Janis Joplin. And I think if people listened to me and compared me to her, I'm sure that they would, that I would come up short because of what we did was so different, and I didn't do anything of the nature of what she did. So, but that's inevitable in the business. People are always going to compare you to whoever they really like. So,
absolutely.
The trick is to get them to like you, and then let them compare other people to you. I always liked Hank Williams and Patsy Cline, and I really, to my mind, I don't think I ever did very much country, with the exception of the country album that I just did as a whim, just because some friends of mine said, let's do a country album, and I said, okay. But, I lived in Nashville, and of course that was the thrust, and when you're, whatever you're hearing a lot of is, there's so much good music in every area of music that, I was introduced to a lot more country music than I probably would have been otherwise. And so, I don't know, it just was sort of a natural response to being here more than anything else, I think. And I tried not to do that, and I tried to disabuse people of the notion that I had become a country singer, but that was the problem with moving here. It did, when people saw, that the record had been produced in Nashville, their first reaction is, well, this is a country album. So I had to, work really hard to try to, let people know, no, I just live in Nashville, but I'm not really doing country music. And then I did that duet with Willie. We got a Grammy nomination for it, and I had to start the whole process all over again. And I may do a country tune that people pick up on, and then I'll just have to live with it. There are worse things,
of course,
in this world.
There've been some many fine covers of your songs over the years by other artists. Is there any one that holds a particular special place for you?
I'd have to say Etta James' version of Down So Low.
Mm-hmm.
Really I was just so floored that she would, that Etta James would hear and and want to do one of my songs is pretty extraordinary. And that's not to take away from anybody else's version of it, but it was more logical with some of the others, singers, my peers, would try to do it, but it just, to me, seemed so extraordinary that she picked up on it that I was pretty wiped out.
Great choice. You've also had a great knack of finding songs to cover by other artists. What particular qualities do you look for in a song to make it one that you'd want to cover? The music and the lyrics. It's just, if I hear a song and I love it, I want to do it. Yeah.
It's as simple as that. What attracts me to a song is the musical part of it is, again, it's one of those ephemeral things that I can't tell you what I like about the music. I just love certain things about the music. And lyrically, it has to say something that I could comfortably say and mean, or if I don't mean it, at least that it isn't embarrassing for me to say. So I've passed on a lot of songs I loved musically once I sat down and really paid attention to the lyrics.
Let's talk about what you're up to these days. What's the extent of your live work these days, Tracy?
What's the extent of what?
Your live work. How often do you spend on the road?
Well, after we did this trio album, me and Irma Thomas and Marcia Ball, and after it was released, we went out and did some pretty serious touring through the spring and summer. And that's really a lot more touring than I've done in a long time. My preference is I don't want to be out any more than I'm home. If I'm out for a week, I'm going to come home for a week. Mm-hmm. And I frequently do better than that. I'm told, and I may have to address it at some point soon, that I should be out there more, but I'm not sure why. I go out and do what's out there for me, and people seem to have ample opportunity to hear me sing, so I have no real desire to get out and, hammer myself on the road.
Extensive touring doesn't really have the same appeal to you as perhaps it did in the past.
It never did.
Never did.
but I did it, I welcomed it when I was starting out, because it's what you do. But at this point in my life and in my career, it just seems to be overkill. Mm-hmm. I don't see the point. The only reason we did some fairly concentrated touring with this record is that the three of us all have our own careers, and the only way we could get out and really hit the markets with the three of us was by packing it all together in a short period of time. Just getting on a bus and hitting a different city every night and doing that kind of stuff. I like to go for a weekend. I like to go out, do 3 gigs over the weekend, come home. Mm. Or if it's someplace I like to be, go and hang for a while. I mean, to me, that's the point of being out on the road, is to be able to actually connect with people and places and, in and out of hotel rooms incessantly. What's the point of that?
When you are on stage, as a live performer, do you think your on-stage persona has changed much over the years? I
couldn't tell you. I know I'm quite comfortable on stage now where I didn't used to be. To me, it's the same as if I'm up on stage singing for a big audience. It's the same as sitting at a table talking to people. You know what I'm saying? I don't. It doesn't. There's not much difference in my attitude or my comfort level. Where before, when I'd get up on stage, I was acutely uncomfortable and wanted to completely tune out the audience and just do my music and not pay any attention to anything else. But that's just a matter of experience and adjusting my attitude a little too, not caring quite so much about some of the minor bullshit that I used to care a lot about. I really don't anymore.
The studio, are you more comfortable in there?
Yeah, I am. And I've made a rule that I don't, I just don't go in the studio if I'm not comfortable. And if I'm not comfortable with the situation in the studio, I don't do that anymore. Because again, I've done just about everything I want to do, and what I want to do now is just enjoy it a lot more and expand on it a little. And you can't do that if you're in a situation where you're uptight or things don't feel right.
Now, you seem to have reverted back to a real strong blues-orientated feel with your recent work. Did you feel a particularly strong urge to get back to your roots there?
I did. I found, especially when I had this long hiatus in terms of recording. I mean, I didn't record for about 10 years, and I was still performing, but I found more and more, and especially when I just went out to sing for fun, like if I'd go hear somebody I liked and sit in with them or something, that what I tended to want to do was blues.
Mm-hmm.
That was just fun for me. So that's the main reason that I approached getting back into recording, from that area. But now I'm ready to spread out a little more again. I just, I think anybody goes through phases.
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I wanted to simplify everything, and now at this point in my life, I want to make it a little more complex.
So at this point, what direction do you see your future recordings going?
No, I don't see any horrendous change, except that I'll do a little less straight blues. I want to get, want to explore some music I've never explored before. I'm kind of into Latin music at this point.
Yeah.
But mostly it'll be what it's always been. Even when I did this, got more aggressively into blues, it still didn't I don't think, changed tremendously, except it was maybe just a little more focused. I think widening the focus a little is mainly how it'll change.
Would you classify yourself more as a singer or a songwriter?
Oh, absolutely a singer.
Yeah.
I'm not a prolific songwriter. I've written some songs that I think are pretty good, but damn few compared to people who consider themselves songwriters. I write a couple songs a year. It's a good year.
Have you found?
Fortunately, since I didn't record for 10 years, I'm sitting on a shitload of tunes.
Yeah, true.
That I wrote over that time. So I could do several albums of my own tunes. I'm not that enchanted with myself exclusively. I need a little other input.
How have you found Randall Records to deal with you within these days? Do they have a great deal of input into the direction and the sound of your albums?
They made it clear early on that they would like me to do a fairly straight-ahead blues album, and then as we did a couple more albums, that loosened up, and they don't really have much to say about what you do in the studio. You just give them the product and they put it out.
Okay, well, before we wind up, just what's on your books for the upcoming months? What's your immediate plans?
Well, I'm home, for a bit, and then in January and February, I'm getting ready to go back out, and I want to be in the studio sometime soon. I'm shooting for probably February in the studio. We're going out to do Delbert McClinton's Blues Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
in January, and I'm doing a few weekend dates, and then I'm going to go in the studio. I hope if I can get everything coordinated, I want to have a record out by this summer, my own record, because I haven't had one of my own records out since '96.
Solo record, yeah, that's right.
think it's time to do that again. Now, Mike said you were having a hard time getting any of the product over there, so we'll email Rounder and just tell him to shoot some stuff over. Do we have your address?
I have emailed it to Mike, yeah, so
Okay.
He's got that. Yeah, a lot of Rounder material we're having trouble getting hands on down here at the moment.
Well, they're in a big changeover, and I don't know what the fuck is going on with them. But it's not my worry. But I can easily get some stuff sent over to you. So
That'd be
not a
terrific.
problem.
Thanks, Tracy. Well, it sounds like it's pretty busy in your kitchen there, so I'll let you get back to it.
As we have been talking, I've been putting together all this stuff, and it's all done. But I think, I think we've covered just about everything on the earth, haven't we?
I think we have, yeah. I want to thank you for your time and all those years of wonderful music. Take care, all the best for Christmas, and maybe we'll see you down here sometime in the future.
I want to get there very badly, and I particularly want to get to New Zealand because I have this. When I hit 50, I became determined to get a tattoo, and because everybody else was getting one, I wanted to get a unique tattoo. So what I want to do is go to New Zealand and get a Maori tattoo.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just, it's like too far to come just to get a tattoo, so somebody'd have to hire me and get me over there.
This shows why you're here.
Yeah.
Pay for the tattoo.
I beg pardon?
Pay for the tattoo. A few shows to pay for it, yeah.
The world's most expensive tattoo.
Okay, Tracy, thanks again.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.